Hello everyone, my name is Pixlriffs and welcome back to the Minecraft Survival Guide. I hope you guys are having a good day. I hope you're enjoying this little look at the overworld in all its beauty because, once again, we are headed back to the Nether. And today I have a fun little project for us. We're actually going to start on our first ever gold farm. And I imagine that to some of you folks who are more familiar with the gold farm designs that are out there, you might be thinking, donut farm on the top of the nether roof, very glamorous, very high concept, very, very big. No. Rein in your thoughts for a second, because we have a few smaller options that we can take care of first. I kind of want to approach gold farms in a way that I don't necessarily approach other farms. Other farms, you've noticed that I tend to get a little bit overkill. Ink farm. Anyone remember the ink farm? Anybody remember the Guardian farm? Yeah, we're going to take things a little bit more steadily with gold farms, primarily because to build the most efficient gold farm, a lot of people do the same thing. For a start, they build a mob farm on the roof of the Nether. There is a lot of stuff to take care of. Can I put this fire out, please? There's a lot of stuff to take care of before we can actually get up to the roof of the Nether and build the most efficient gold farm imaginable. There are also other alternatives, and I would encourage you guys to take a look at these other alternatives if all you want is just, I don't know, a little bit of gold, because the gold farm built on the roof of the Nether is also designed to work as an XP farm, but it is possible to make gold farms that don't necessarily cover XP, that just cover that shiny gold stuff that these pigmen happen to drop. First of all, let's take a look at possibly the easiest gold farm you can do, which is to wall yourself in somewhere over here in the netherrack, somewhere that the pigmen will not be able to get you, and just hit one of them. So we're going to try that first, because this is going to be hilarious, and I kind of felt like starting the episode off this way. Right, pigmen, come at me, and hopefully none of them will be able to hit me from in here. I've got a nice little box set up. The pigmen are just going to queue up in front of here, and we get to kill them. And eventually, enough pigmen will gather around and will come from quite a distance that you might be able to get yourself a tidy amount of gold. This is probably the most lo-fi type of farm design you are ever likely to encounter, because it just relies on the pigmen's AI catching up to you. And look at that, we've got 6 gold nuggets already with a looting sword. That's pretty good. Although, unfortunately, we seem to have run dry of our supply of pigmen a little bit here. Let's see if this guy aggroes on me if I walk up close. Nope, looks like he was out of range of those pigmen. So 6 gold nuggets is actually all we're going to get from that particular farm design. But as you can see, all you need to do really for a gold farm is get enough local pigmen angry with you and have them queue up to be killed. It looked like some of the other pigmen in the area did manage to catch aggro and were a little bit angry at me, so I have made a hasty retreat, and we're going to head over to another section of the Nether where it might be more feasible to build a gold farm. And that is over here at this giant lava lake, because one of the key tenets of building a gold farm in the first place is to limit the amount of spawnable space for zombie pigmen so that you can have them all spawn in the space that you want them. And lava lakes are a good place to do that, believe it or not, because lava is not spawnable space for anything. Stuff doesn't generally spawn in fluids, it needs solid blocks to spawn on, and despite the fact that these ghasts are roaming around the place, it is actually a really great place to set up a zombie pigman farm. Now you might think, yeah, we can build some kind of large-scale structure in the middle of this, and in the fullness of time, I think we will. But before that even happens, it is wise to consider the ceiling of the Nether. Not the Nether roof, not the bit above the bedrock, but the bit just below. And that is where we're going to be working today, building possibly the simplest, easiest, and most effective gold farm of its type. You see, the Nether is meant to be cavernous. It has a lot of wide open spaces and its fair share of caves, and zombie pigmen will spawn en masse basically anywhere you've generated terrain, in a 128 block radius around the player, much like other hostile mobs out in the overworld. They need to generate at least 23 blocks away from the nearest player, will start to randomly despawn once they are more than 32 blocks away, and at 128 blocks away they will despawn instantly. So the best place to build an early gold farm, in my opinion, is up in the Nether ceiling, because that takes you as far away as you can possibly be in the Nether from all of these outcroppings of land and various caves. So the Nether ceiling above a lava lake is kind of the ideal place for it, because you're limiting the amount of spawnable space around here in the Nether. Now, there are, of course, ways to mob-proof the Nether in large quantities. You can do what we did with the ice tunnel and place buttons on all the spawnable blocks, but if you look around you right now, there are a lot of spawnable blocks. So the ideal situation would probably be to build our gold farm in the center of this lava lake, but up in the ceiling where there's going to be a limited amount of spawnable space available for zombie pigmen, and therefore any spawnable space we create up there is going to be the ideal place for them to spawn. Now this is going to involve me taking the rough coordinates of the center of this lava lake, which is about there, and if you look at the structure of this is actually quite a neat little area for making a zombie pigman farm. So I kind of think maybe we should convert this area here into a farm instead of worrying too much about taking the coordinates. I didn't realize quite how nice this looks up here. This ravine over here kind of having curved away the structure of the nether roof and left these actually curved walls. That's kind of nice. Let's do something with this space. Now, as you can see, there are still zombie pigmen spawning down there on the lava lake kind of level, and that's, I think, around Y30, maybe a little bit higher, a little bit lower. I can't remember exactly where the lava sea tends to spawn in the nether, but that is the reason you will find people building above the bedrock ceiling when they want to build a massive gold farm, is it's basically the only place you can guarantee that no pigmen will be spawning anywhere else, and therefore guarantee the fastest rates. So if you want to approach that right now, if you want to go out and find a gold farm like that, more power to you. I will probably tackle that design at a later point in this series, but right now I want to start with the basics. And the basics is going to be clearing out a whole lot of netherrack from this nether ceiling. This guy has spawned up here already. He knows what we're trying to do with this place. So let me clear out a decent area of this with my pickaxe. I've got a few shulker boxes on me in case we need to take the netherrack back to the overworld, and I think we can make a decent headway into this project today. Now, when building a farm like this, we do still have to remember a couple of things. The first of which being that if a pigman gets more than like 32 blocks away, or maybe 40 blocks, I can't remember because we're kind of relying on zombie behavior and zombies can track you for a little bit further, it is kind of the case that they will stop moving. Their mob AI will basically cease to exist after they reach a certain distance away from the player, and they will just kind of stand there, not kind of wandering around like this guy is. They will just freeze in place. So we have to make sure that as we're building this farm, we consider the spot where the player is going to stand in order for the zombie pigmen to generate around them, and to make sure that you are never more than about 30 to 40 blocks away from a spot where you want a pigman to spawn. Because outside of that range, they're not going to be able to move regardless of what behavior you're relying on to make them move. Like the best gold farms, the really high efficiency ones I'm talking about, will have a ring around the player between 23 and 32 blocks away so that the zombie pigman can still move and pass the aggro effect between each other so that they can become aggressive towards you and move towards you at the same time. Now, we're not actually necessarily going to use a player as bait in this farm, because there is something else that zombies and zombie pigmen tend to go after that isn't a player. And that, weirdly enough, is one of these. Turtle eggs are, for some reason, really attractive to zombies of all kinds, including the drowned, husks, regular zombies, and zombie pigmen. Now, by breaking one of these with a silk touch pickaxe, we can actually acquire the turtle egg, and much as it makes me feel really bad to steal the turtle eggs from these lovely sea turtles, I'm going to grab a couple here, because we can use these as bait in a zombie pigman gold farm to have the zombie pigmen all run towards a certain area. And that's going to be a really great way of luring them into a certain area where they can die easily without necessarily having to use a player as bait. Now, this doesn't seem like the most logical or believable thing in the world, that a zombie pigman would just go up to a turtle egg and try to stomp it, so I figure I may as well sacrifice one of these turtle eggs to give you a quick demonstration. Note the amount of zombie pigmen around here, they're all in a decent radius. I'm going to pop down a turtle egg and watch them all start to run to it. There we go, we've got a few moving in, we've got a couple moving in from the outside, yep. And they stomp up and down on the turtle egg, they crowd around this thing for a little while, and then eventually it starts to break. Now, I'm gonna try and... Whoa, okay, yep, not a good idea, not a good idea. I wanted to get the turtle egg back, I'm sorry. As you can see, the turtle egg isn't quite as instant as zombie pigman aggro, so it does take them a little while to notice the turtle egg and to walk towards it. But if we set up an area where zombie pigmen can spawn in a radius around a turtle egg, but before they reach it, they fall down into some kind of hole where we can collect their drops, you will find this turns into a fairly effective zombie pigman gold farm. Trapdoors provide us with a very simple way of tricking a mob into thinking it can walk over an area. Trapdoors, when they are open like this, can actually let mobs through, and one trapdoor is not usually enough. You probably want to go with two, but once it realizes that there is a space there that it might be able to walk over, it will drop down into this area here. So by setting up an area like this with trapdoors placed open all around the turtle egg, we're tricking the mobs into thinking this is something they can walk over, they end up falling into a pit, and the turtle egg remains safe from getting stomped. So now we have a couple of really large tasks ahead of us, and this is all stuff I'm probably going to do off camera because it's going to take a little while and isn't going to be the most interesting footage in the world. But the next steps are to create another platform like this, 2 blocks down from here, so that more zombie pigmen can spawn in it. We're going to do that 2 times, so we're going to have 3 platforms total with turtle eggs in the center of each one and these trapdoors leading down to a killing mechanism. We're also going to have to mob-proof the entirety of the space around this to get the best rates from this farm, which is, you know, one of those things where you can decide how much you want to commit to it and how much you just want to trust that you've mob-proofed enough of the area around it. But making sure there is as little spawnable space for zombie pigmen as possible will guarantee that you get the most gold out of a farm like this. And then, of course, we're going to have to decide how exactly we want to kill the pigmen in the first place. And there are a few ways of doing this. Full damage would be one. We can maybe crush them using some sort of piston mechanism, or alternatively, we can take advantage of entity cramming rules and use minecarts. And that would be my preferred method, and it's the method typically used by larger scale gold farms, so we'll give that a try once we've got everything set up. But for now, I've got a whole lot of block placing to do. Welcome back, folks. You'll notice things are looking a little bit different around here, and that's because we actually got this entire farm built on a live stream. That live stream will be up on my Pixel VOD's channel, and if you've watched this video as soon as it came out, it'll probably take a couple of hours to upload, but for the rest of you guys, you should be able to go over there and watch it if you want to see it take shape as you go. But this whole central section is now complete. We have ways for the pigman to die at the bottom there, and I've even started slabbing a bunch of the nether. We've done quite a significant amount of it around this area, and thankfully there are a few more technical people in the live stream chat who were able to give me a few pointers about exactly how we could optimize this farm, aside from slabbing the areas where other pigmen can spawn. Remember that we are at Y118 in the nether, so there's not really a way, aside from getting above the ceiling, above the bedrock in the nether, that it is possible to really get much higher than this. So anything that's 128 blocks away from us is still going to be able to spawn pigmen. So slabbing the nether, slabbing like large sections of the nether like this, is kind of necessary to get the optimum spawning rates. But what we want here is really just a functional farm that gives us gold nuggets every now and again. So that's the purpose of this design, and in future we will go over more efficient gold farm designs that rely on slightly different mechanics or a much larger slabbed area of the nether. But spawn proofing issues aside, this area is actually running really well. I've got a little AFK spot down the corridor over there that's roughly about 20 blocks away from this area, allowing us to maximize the amount of area that zombie pigmen can spawn. You'll notice I got rid of the guidelines on the floor that I'd drawn in stone brick, and that was thanks to a bit of advice from the chat, who mentioned to me that zombie pigmen will actually track these eggs for the same distance that they tend to track a player. So 23 blocks distance is actually the maximum distance that a zombie pigman will notice this egg and try and walk towards it. And when they do that, they will walk over these trapdoors. I actually had to widen out the area that the zombie pigmen were going to walk over these trapdoors because they could actually get to the block containing the egg from the corners. So that was something I had to widen this out to a kind of row of 3 trapdoors on each side, but that still it tricks the zombie pigmen into walking out over it. Now, as you look down here, you'll notice that there are pressure plates down there and what look like redstone repeaters. Good eyes. Those are redstone repeaters. They're getting redstone signal from the pressure plates, putting it into a block which has a piston on top of it, and pushing zombie pigmen into this central section here, where they can fall on another pressure plate that pushes them into one of these 4 minecarts. Now, it doesn't look like it from up here, but there are actually at least 23 minecarts in each of those spots. I think I miscounted a couple of times and placed more than that, but I will go over that in a second, and that allows us to kill the zombie pigmen by what is called entity cramming, which basically prevents more than 24 entities from being in a single block space at once. So if I was to fall into those minecarts, considering that players also count as an entity, I would end up getting crushed to death, basically. And it's actually happened to the blaze farm a couple of times. If I leave it for too long and too many blazes end up in that killing spot, they all tend to gravitate to the same 3 blocks, and they start to entity cram and take damage because there are too many of them in one place. That is what kills the pigmen at the bottom of these farms, and underneath each of those minecarts, there is a hopper that leads out to an output chest where we collect the drops. Now, of course, because these are zombie pigmen dying passively as opposed to zombie pigmen getting killed by a player, there is no chance of them dropping any kind of player kill items, which includes the gold swords that they carry and also includes gold ingots. So the only things we're getting from this farm are gold nuggets and rotten flesh, which isn't necessarily the most desirable output, but believe me, there is a decent amount of gold to be had just by standing here and letting the pigmen accumulate in the farm. So it's really very simple. Each one of these 3 layers is a wide enough space for pigmen to spawn, realize the egg is here, and go after it. And thanks to Logical Geek Boy, who was hanging out in my chat, he mentioned that you can actually protect the egg completely with trapdoors like this. The zombie pigmen will still see the eggs through these trapdoors, even if they are covered over like this. If there are solid blocks in the way, I don't think it works that way, but thankfully, the trapdoors can be placed this way, and zombie pigmen will still walk to their deaths over here because they will still be able to see the eggs. One thing to note about the eggs is that each one needs at least 2 blocks worth of height above the block where the egg. So imagine the egg is 1 block, you need 1 block above that and another block above that to be air. Otherwise, the zombie pigmen will not have room to jump up and down on the egg in the way that they like to do, and they won't even track to the egg in the first place because they will realize they don't have enough jumping space. So you'll notice that underneath this stone brick that the egg is sat on, we have 2 blocks of air, one there, and then the 3rd block down contains the next egg, and so on and so forth until we get to the bottom of the farm. There are actually only 3 layers in this farm, but we might be able to fit in another one. And there are a few places around here that I still need to take out or slab over to make sure that the zombie pigmen don't spawn outside the farm, but anyone that spawns inside this farm will walk down into this trap and will end up dying. And outside of that, the rest of this area is just mob proofing. I've stuck slabs on basically every surface I can, and as you can see, I've missed a few of them, but I can probably fill these in with netherrack blocks. Basically, the idea is to just create as little spawnable space as possible by making sure that all of this is slabs. We could actually save a little bit of material here by just making sure that each of these is only a 1 block high space, like so. Yeah, that just about works. Okay, so like I was saying, basically any solid block around here that has 2 blocks of air above it needs to have a slab on top of it to prevent a zombie pigman from spawning. We could do the same thing with buttons, but slabs are ever so slightly cheaper. If you imagine you're using 3 stone blocks to create 3 buttons, you can create 6 slabs with 3 stone blocks. So you might have seen people do this with buttons just because it isn't possible to stack buttons up on a single block the way it is with slabs, but if you're careful enough, you can just quite easily slab over this area, and it's slightly less expensive on materials. But as you can see around here, we still have stuff spawning, including ghasts, which I like to harass with my sword every now and again, and the other zombie pigmen who are sadly still able to spawn down here on the lower islands. But of course, that's going to be a mammoth task to slab absolutely everything within 128 block radius, and to be honest, with the amount of effort I wanted to put into this farm, I'm honestly not sure it's worth it. If we're going to do that, we're going to do it properly, and we're going to build a really effective farm that's going to be able to spawn zombie pigmen around us in a wide area, also give us experience as well as just the gold drops, and give us player kill items as well. But we will get to that in future in this series. For now, I'm just happy that we have a gold farm at all, and this little section up here, if I can get to it with my rockets, should have brought some ender pearls on me. There we go. I can slam into the wall and get to it. I will find a more effective way of getting over here at some point, but we should slab these as well just to make sure that zombie pigmen don't spawn on that. Now, this actually leads over to the killing mechanism, and right here, I don't know if you will be able to see this, if we can turn this on. Yeah, there's a lot of entities in that space. If you look at the numbers on the left-hand side at the top, it will say C, E, and P up there. The E is how many entities we're looking at, and that includes the minecarts and the minecart rails, so there are about 100 minecarts here, basically, is what that's saying. And having 23 minecarts in a single block here means that anything that falls into there will entity cram to death, and any of the drops will be collected by this hopper system so that it all ends up in this chest. And as you can see, I've actually been AFKing here for about half an hour, and for each minute we have waited there, we've got 1 rotten flesh and 1 gold nugget. So, like I said, not an entirely hugely high yield farm, but if I was to AFK here for about a day, we would get a decent few stacks of gold nuggets, and that would really be all we needed for the present time. Now, when it comes to making this farm more efficient, of course, we could do more slabbing over of the nether. We could create a much more efficient farm. We could create something that even allows us to kill the zombie pigmen with looting to allow us to get even more gold nuggets, because as you saw at the start of this video, killing a couple of zombie pigmen gave me 6 gold nuggets because I have a looting 3 sword. There we go, it's happening now. Some of the pigmen are actually spawning in the farm and coming down here to die, and we get 3 rotten flesh and 1 gold nugget from that. So yeah, it doesn't give you the hugest yield in the world, but you know, farms like this are worth making every now and again because it's possible to do stuff extremely passively, without player input at all, without worrying about building things exactly right, we've managed to put together a decent gold farm here. So for a quick demonstration of how entity cramming works, I've spent a little bit of time here overnight trapping a zombie. I think there might even be two in there, but one of them might have despawned by now. So I'm going to place some rail immediately underneath this block here, like so, and we're going to let the zombie fall out of here into a bunch of minecarts that we're going to place to set up the entity cram in the first place. So what I've got in my inventory right now is 23 minecarts, and yes, this seems like a lot. This is one of the reasons we have an iron farm, because we need a lot of minecarts for projects like this. So what you want to do is make sure that you have a position from which you can look directly at, let's put this block of gravel somewhere else, so then we can look directly at the minecart rail, not the space above the rail, but the rail itself. We want to place a minecart on there, and then look at the rail so that the hitbox is showing around it. You can see where the outline of the hitbox is around there, that very faint line. Each time you place a minecart on here, you need to be looking at that rail, and you'll notice the shadow will get thicker and thicker like so until it's basically an opaque black blob. And this is setting up entity cramming. So there are going to be 23 minecarts all in this one space, which means 23 entities. That counts for the minecarts and the mobs themselves, even though the two of them are not remotely the same thing. The minecart is obviously a player rideable thing, whereas the mob is a sort of alive enemy. But in this case, once the zombie drops down through here, you'll notice it just rides away. Yeah, not exactly how I expected that to go. Okay, let's try that again. This time I'm going to set up all of the minecarts in a space where they don't have anywhere else to go, which is how you're supposed to do it. You're supposed to make sure that the rail is in a block and whatever falls into the minecarts can't immediately end up riding it. Now, one thing it's important to note is not to get in there yourself, because you will die very, very quickly. I have done it a couple of times. Not in this world, but I've done it before. Let me tell you, it kills you almost instantly, even if you're wearing a significant amount of armor. So yeah, I'm going to be very careful of that. I'm going to wait for it to be nighttime again, trap another zombie up here, and do my best to actually demonstrate entity cramming this time. Okay, everything is dead. The spiders are chilling. Everything else has been taken care of. And now I think we can take out the block underneath here, and hopefully if we drop this guy into the minecarts, he takes entity cramming damage and dies pretty much instantly. That right there is a lethal bunch of minecarts, and I did have to add an extra one in there. I'm not sure if I just got the number wrong in the first place, or if I lost a minecart in the Great Zombie Caper earlier, but I think that is entity cramming all set up in here. That was a lot of minecarts, and I'm going to take them all back because I'll probably use them as hopper minecarts in other things. But I hope that part of the farm all makes sense to you guys now, and hopefully that will be everything you need to know to start your own little basic gold farm up here in the Nether ceiling. That's going to be it for this episode of the Minecraft Survival Guide, and that's also going to be it for Nether Project Week, as I've been calling it. I hope you guys have enjoyed this little themed look at some of the stuff we can do here in the Nether. Don't forget to leave a like on this episode if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more from the Minecraft Survival Guide, and I'll see you guys soon. Take care, bye for now.